Your ex feels the loss or regret later. I'm going to walk you through what it can look like when these things flip. Number one, control versus loss. At the breakup, your ex felt control. And they had probably been thinking about this for a while, but they had control of the situation, that they were saying, I want to break up. We are going to break up. And it really didn't matter what you thought. You didn't get an opinion. You didn't get a vote. You didn't get to say, well, no, I think we should stay together. And your ex says, okay, we'll agree to disagree and stay together. It doesn't work that way. They pretty much had all the control. They called the shots in that situation and in that moment. And all you could do is watch everything crumble and feel the loss. And it's a sad, difficult situation to be in, obviously. But in that moment, you two are on very different sides, polar opposites. Your ex feels the control and you feel the loss. And then you go into recovery mode. You're trying to save and recover the relationship. Your ex goes into relief, the stage of relief that I talk about in other videos, including my video called Stages Your Ex Goes Through During No Contact. And I'll link to that in the description below. But this is extremely frustrating because you feel like you don't know this person anymore. And in a way, you don't. Nothing makes sense. And especially when they don't even have the willingness to try or to work on it. And that's one of the things I often tell people, don't become what hurt you. So I get to speak to people, obviously, on coaching sessions who have been dumped. They're going through the breakup. And I will tell them, remember this in the future. Don't become what hurts you. When you're in a situation where you've lost some feelings in a relationship, some of that passion, which will always happen. You will always experience that. And people who don't understand that, they don't understand what limerence is, and I talk about that in other videos as well, they will go from relationship to relationship chasing that early high. And whenever they experience a drop in that, they'll say, well, I lost feelings. Oh, well, and they'll just break up with the person and go find somebody else. And they'll exhaust limerence again, which it always happens. You will always have a drop in passion in that fireworks stage. It will always go down. And people who don't understand that are destined to chase it and leave it and chase it and leave it. And so don't become that. Always be willing to work on things, to let time pass and see what happens. Don't just drop out of the relationship when it becomes difficult or when you lose some of those feelings, or if the person does something that you don't like, some minor thing, and you just have a gotcha attitude. I tell people, don't do that. Don't become what hurt you. And in this moment, one of the things you want most from this person is just the willingness. Just give it some time. Let's work on this. Let's talk about this. Let's see if this can work. And that really should be the attitude that they have, unless there's been abuse or selfishness and that kind of thing. And even then, it's best to just give it a try, and your ex is not even doing that. So you two are at polar opposites here. And going forward, you're going to see some more ways that this exists and some more ways that this develops. Number two is validation versus rejection. And so you experience the rejection, which causes you to lose confidence in yourself. It causes you to wonder if you're really that attractive, if you really have value. It's very difficult. Whereas your ex, because they know you want to stay in the relationship, and so often they will get to see you beg and plead and cry and just have all this difficulty. And it's like, wow, this person is really suffering because they're losing me. I must be awesome. That's kind of a shallow way, or maybe perhaps that's me painting with a broad stroke, but that in a nutshell is what they're feeling. They are actually feeling that they are sought after and desired, and it is such an epic high, and it can cause them to think of themselves as much more attractive than they really are. It can cause them to think that they just have limitless options out there, and they can even demote people to actually just being options, as if they had gone into an ice cream shop. And, well, I don't know, do I want peppermint chocolate chip, or do I want cookies and cream, or maybe I want strawberry? All these options. That's how they can start to view people. And instead of viewing it as this is something we can work on, this is something that we can improve, they just see it kind of like a part in a car. Just swap out the part. We'll see what happens. And that can be obviously extremely painful, to feel like you are just an option that has been rejected. Whereas they get all this validation and they have this oftentimes false sense of confidence or false sense of their own attractiveness, and they move forward. It's as though they've gotten a gift, this boost of feeling just so attractive and wanted, and you've gotten the exact opposite. And so again, you two have been pushed to polar extremes. They don't feel the urgency. They don't feel that it's necessary to try to work on it or to pursue you, because really you're their backup plan, even if they don't think of it that way, just because you still want the relationship. You still want to be with them. So they have that assurance. They kind of have that ace in the hole. They have that in their back pocket, and they can move on with their life knowing if anything goes wrong, you're their insurance policy. You don't have that. You have this sense of rejection, and also that you have to be urgent, that you're losing them and you don't even know why, because usually the answers are so cliche. They're ridiculous garbage, like I need to work on myself, or I'm just going through such a difficult time right now. Things that are untrue, in that they could still be in the relationship. They don't have to leave it. And that's what makes it so frustrating, because you think, but if I was going through a difficult time, I would embrace and welcome your support and your love and the togetherness of being in this relationship. Or you think, if I needed to work on myself, I would do it inside of the relationship. Isn't that what we're all doing? Or at least we all should be working on ourselves. It doesn't mean you have to leave a relationship. These are baseless excuses. And usually there's something that your ex will say just to get you to stop, just to get you to think that you can't argue with it, because it's so deeply personal and it's just so mystical and vague and almost spiritual that you would just be a jerk if you argued with that. That's kind of what they're hoping for. And usually there's another reason, and it's that they have lost attraction for you. And usually that's when they don't understand what limerence is, and that they have gone through limerence and that it has faded, and it's not as much easy sugar rush fun as it once was. And now it actually takes work. It takes effort to maintain that commitment. It takes effort to bring some of the sparks here and there. And it actually takes someone carrying the relationship at least half on their side. And so if they have been depending on you to carry the relationship, you're the one making the plans, you're the one who is being romantic, you're the one initiating and complimenting and things like that, then they don't really have a lot of skin in the game. And so it's kind of like a spoiled child. When they are tired of the new toy, they just assume there will be another one that will fall into their lap. And that's disappointing, and it's hurtful when you actually kind of realize that about this person. But that's often the case. And so once again, you two are on polar opposites. You are dealing with rejection, and they are dealing with the exact opposite. They have been validated. They have been made to feel that they are sexy and attractive and wanted and desired, something you would love to feel in this moment, but you don't. And they do, and it makes it easier for them to walk away and continue in the breakup, because they haven't felt any loss yet. At least nothing near the loss that you are feeling. They might feel the loss of the relationship some, and that can make them a bit sad, but they don't have the motivation to stay in the relationship, and so they don't feel much loss over losing it. Before I get to number 3, get more information on my emergency breakup kit. The link is in the description below. It's an online course that can help you get your ex back. It's the emergency breakup kit at myexbackcoach.com. It's a powerful guide that can help you get your ex back. And it's the culmination of my 23 years in the relationship coaching industry. The emergency breakup kit at myexbackcoach.com. The link is in the description below. You can pause this video and go get that and come back. Thank you for listening to my commercial, and thank you for your support. Number 3 expands on what I have talked about so far, and that is resolve versus shock. When you hear that they want to break up, oftentimes it catches you blindsided. It is not something that you saw coming. And it just seems like it's out of the blue. And that in its own is painful. It's difficult to deal with emotionally, and it makes the whole situation even more difficult for you. Whereas they have probably been thinking about this for a while. Maybe they have tried to talk themselves out of it, and they've said, I'll just wait till the end of the weekend or the end of the month. And they keep coming back to this concept in their mind that they aren't happy and they should just break up with you. And they're formulating some of those excuses. What can they tell you? How can they describe it? Because the bottom line is they are not as motivated. They are not as attracted to you because maybe things have just calmed down in terms of the passion and the limerence, and they don't understand that. And it can also be there have been negatives in the relationship that have caused them to lose some of that motivation and attraction. And so when that happens and the passion is also lower, they have no motivation to try to bring it back. They just think, I'm just going to let it go and, quote, move on. And they will sometimes give you beautiful little excuses about how much you deserve someone who can give you what you want, but I just can't do that right now. Darn it. Those kinds of things that you probably heard, you maybe have even said, and you know that it's just an effort to try to make the other person feel a little bit better because you're leaving, and that's just how it is. And that's how they feel in that moment. I know that's not fun to hear, but learning about this really does help you. And so they are resolved. This isn't a surprise to them. They are not getting the worst news of their life or the worst news of the year. And that further solidifies the concept that you two are at polar opposites. And they will oftentimes gaslight you and tell you how difficult it is for them as well. But I can tell you this right now, that's not true. It is not that difficult for them, except that they might feel badly that they hurt you. But if it really was that difficult for them, they would not do it, because people do what they want to do. They follow their motivation, and attraction is motivation at this point. If you imagine a really attractive, high-profile individual coming to your ex and saying, let's be together, your ex is not going to say, oh, this is so difficult, I can't be with you. No, they're going to be motivated enough. They will overcome the difficulty, which is what you're supposed to do in a relationship when it gets difficult. And remember that. Don't become what hurt you. Be willing to stick around, to work on it, to exhaust every avenue of saving this thing, because that's what you should do in a long-term committed relationship. I'm not saying if you've just been dating 2 or 3 months that you should pull out all the stops and focus every energy that you have on saving it. But if this is a long-term relationship, 8 months, a year, more, yes, that's what you should do, because that's what you do in a committed relationship. And you should always expect things will become difficult and that your motivation will drop. You should expect that to be the case, because that happens in all relationships at some point for both people. And the person that you're dumping has experienced that for you, or will at some point, where their motivation is not what it was. And so ask yourself, do you want them to just cut tail and run? Or do you want them to stick around and try and see if they can salvage this, and if this can become something great like it was at one point, or they wouldn't have stuck around as long as they did. I'm throwing these things in to try to help prevent some breakups out there, so that maybe some of you who are listening, if you're in this situation, and I keep saying don't become what hurts you, maybe this will have some impact. That's why I keep saying this. I'm looking out for you. Number 4 is role reversal. And this is when it can get good for the person who has been broken up with, because there comes a point, oftentimes, not always, oftentimes, not always, oftentimes, not always. That's for the people in the comments who will say, doesn't work because it didn't work in my case, and therefore it doesn't work in any case. I get emails every day where it has worked. I get text messages almost every day where it has worked, and people get back together. Married people, dating people. I've had messages where people will show me pictures of children who would not have been born because this person had left and there was going to be a divorce, and they started working with me and they were able to save their marriage. And it's a beautiful thing. It is such an encouragement to me when that's the case, because these children would not even be in the world. And it's an amazing thing to behold, and it keeps me going. But it does happen. People do get back together. So you should take some hope in that. When this role reversal happens, usually it's because you have stayed away from this person who broke up with you. You have not chased. You didn't fight for them. You shouldn't have to fight for the one you love. You should not. Life is a fight. This person should make your life easier. They should bring support to your life. They shouldn't bring another fight or another challenge. They should actually be your rest and your peace. And so don't fall for this idea that you just have to fight and keep fighting, and one day this person will realize how much you love them. That's not how it should work. When they realize you're not fighting and that they haven't heard from you, they make assumptions, because you do, right? When you're not hearing from them, you're assuming they're going out and they're just having these epic times where they go to all these clubs that are just like all the other clubs, and there's music and drinking that's just such a rare and unusual thing, and it's the most amazing experience of their life, and they're shutting down the clubs and dancing and laughing. And you know those thoughts when you're not hearing from them. That's kind of what you assume is happening, and you assume somebody else is in the picture. That's what they can start to assume with you, and it erodes what I talked about earlier. It erodes some of that validation where they think that they are just so desirable and lust-worthy and attractive because you want them so bad and yet they're walking away from you. It flips some of that, because it doesn't make sense. If you were still that attracted to them, wouldn't you just be clawing your way to get them to listen to you so you could beg and plead? But you're not. You seem like you're moving on and maybe living your own life. So now you've actually changed the terms. You're not the same person you were at the breakup. You are not responding the same way. Your interest in them no longer feels like a permanent guarantee or backup plan to them. And so they have to take a look at this. Maybe they stalk you on social media. They see what you posted. They try to figure this out, but at the moment, at least, they are losing some of that validation. It's not there anymore. And it's kind of like air. We don't need it until we do. And we don't notice it until it's not there. And that at least gets them to pay attention and to think about the situation. And they can actually start to interpret their feelings differently. Like, yes, I lost some passion, but when I think that I might lose him or that I might lose her, I feel some of that come back. And that's true. If you look at my video on limerence, I actually talk about that. When you have to experience potential of loss, when it feels like it could get away or that you're losing it, it reignites passion. It shows you this is a house of cards, that you could lose this person. And that can reignite a lot of that limerence, that longing and that desire and that attraction. That's not how you want it to happen, but that's how it often can. Sometimes we have to experience the reality that we could lose something to make us pay attention, to make us fight. And so when that role reversal happens, you being in no contact, you staying away, not chasing, not fighting, it feels like rejection. And so rather than have that validation, now they actually have the rejection. And if you remember how much that motivated you, how you were willing to get on YouTube and look up a video about how to get your ex back, or what's going on with my ex after they've broken up with me. You were motivated to try to salvage this. And that can often be what they start to do, because they lose a lot of things and they don't just want the validation back, though be careful, because that is some of it. And if you give that back to them too quickly, it can cause a fading again to where they say, I guess I was just right before, and they break up with you again. So it's important. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But when the roles reverse and they don't feel that control anymore because they don't even know what's going on with you, and they don't get to see you begging and pleading, which makes them feel like they're in control. If you can imagine a dictator and you're like, please don't tax all my income. Please don't take my property. Please don't lock me up. You have no control because the other person is your dictator. And that's kind of what people can make their ex sometimes. When you're not doing that anymore, they don't have the control. They don't feel the control of being a dictator. They feel that you actually have a lot of the control because they don't even know what you're doing. You're doing whatever you want to do, which is what a person does when they're in control. Number 5, when this happens, there is a risk of a role flip again, to where they could go back to having that validation and to feeling that they are resolved to leave you. It can be especially true when they realize that maybe they think they were right the first time and they shouldn't have come back. And it actually makes it where they might stick with the breakup even more, even longer, or even permanently this time. And don't panic, I do have videos on that, and people are often creatures of pattern, so go back into no contact. But for the moment, it can definitely delay things. It can make them think that when they do have those doubts, they'll say, well, no, I went back before and I had those feelings fade again, so I should just stay away. That is a thought in their mind. It doesn't mean that it's permanent, but that is something that can delay them coming back another time. So that's why it's so important when they do come back that you don't risk that role flip again, that role reversal again. Do not give it all back to them quickly. I talk about this a lot on coaching sessions. I talk about this in the emergency breakup kit that you can get at myexbackcoach.com. And that's where you can also book a coaching session with me or a coach on my staff. That's myexbackcoach.com. But you want to show them that you're reserved, that the fact that they broke up with you tells you they might not be a good partner because they actually just cut and run instead of working on it. They gave up instead of working on it. That's not an attractive trait in a partner, and that could have actually hurt their chances with you. And so don't just take them back 100%. You need to tell them, I'm not sure about you, to be honest. I mean, this hurt. This was difficult. I don't know if I can be back with somebody who would do this to me. I need some time, or at least I need to take it one day at a time, and that's really all that I can give you right now. That's what they need to be hearing from you. That's what they need to feel from you. I'm not saying be cold. I am saying be cautious. And sometimes that can make them mad. If you're dealing with a selfish person who's always gotten everything they want and they've always been put up on a pedestal and told how wonderful and attractive they are and they haven't been held accountable to their actions, that can make them mad. How dare you not take me back? You've got to be strong in that situation. I'm not saying that you yell at them or anything like that, but you certainly don't just say, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, you're right, I'm wrong, and take them back. You can just say, I told you how I felt, I'm just being honest. You can do whatever you want to do, obviously. You've got to show this sense of detachment, that what they did actually did kind of push you away from them, that you're not going to chase and beg and plead. That's important if you want to have that hope of a long-term reunited relationship with them. And we can talk about that more on a coaching session, or the emergency breakup kit is definitely helpful. Please subscribe to this channel if you like this video, and please like this video if you liked this video. This has been Coach Lee, and as always, thank you for watching.